So we get to finally talk about one of my favorite gaming consoles of all time, which is the Nintendo Switch, the original one. Now this one came out a couple of years ago, and what I will tell you is that this console is one of the most mind-boggling consoles that have ever came out. So first of all, you guys remember the Nintendo Wii U, which I've talked about a lot on this channel. That was kind of a flop. I personally loved a lot of those games that console came out with, but a lot of those ended up getting ported over to the Nintendo Switch. And the Nintendo Switch, even now in 2022, is still going to be developed. It's still having a long lifespan ahead of it. And I still think it's going to be one of the best selling consoles of 2022, even though it came out, I think, 5 years ago, which is so crazy. Now, the first thing to keep in mind is that the next Nintendo Switch at some point is going to be coming out. The Nintendo Switch Pro, the 2, whatever they're going to call it. Although we did just get the OLED model, which is beautiful and I love that one a lot, this Nintendo Switch and every Nintendo Switch, including the Lite, in my opinion, are not going anywhere anytime soon. Even when those next Nintendo Switches come out, everyone owns these Nintendo Switch, and if they don't even purchase the next one, well, I'm pretty sure Nintendo is not going to just leave this one out, and a lot of developers are still going to make games for these consoles. So I could see this console still being around for another 5 years easily, without a doubt. We've never seen a console like this before, in my opinion. It's a dual hybrid that's selling like crazy. It's been out for 5 years and it's still selling like crazy, which is so crazy to me. Now, I'm sure everyone knows what the specs and how this thing looks and everything like that, but I will kind of cover it at a, kind of a large high scale. This thing on the front has that 6.2 inch LCD display, and as I mentioned before, this display is still pretty decent. Unfortunately, with the OLED model that came out, there's a really big difference. That OLED screen looks so much better than this, LCD display, but I don't think that's a bad thing, and I still think to this day that the LCD panel on this thing isn't that bad if you're trying to go out and, play portable mode and everything like that. But once you look at that OLED panel on that Nintendo Switch OLED, there's just no going back. That panel looks so much better. Even when I make videos on this display, it looks so much better on the OLED one. The Switch, the original one, unfortunately doesn't look as good, but it's totally okay. One of the big things with these Switches is that you're pretty much going to go ahead and dock it up to a display, and then that's it. It's not like you're going to play portable all the time, most probably. So at least with this one, you have the ability to dock it up to a really nice TV if you want to, but even if you have to play on the display, it's totally okay. Now, we do have the JoyCons on the left and the right side. Now, I've been talking about these JoyCons on my second channel heavily for the last 2 years, and I've been showing how to troubleshoot your controllers as well if you run into certain issues and different things like that. And this is still something that Nintendo needs to fix, and on my third channel I'm probably going to make a video about this too. These Joy-Cons still have a lot of issues, a lot of Joy-Con drifts and a lot of problems like that. Even with these new OLED switches, we have those same problems, and in my opinion, for a device of this caliber that's still selling like crazy and how much money it's making Nintendo, they need to be able to fix these Joy-Cons. Now, they do have service repair programs. You can send your Joy-Cons in and have them fix it, but we shouldn't even have to deal with that, in my opinion. And it's been out for 5 years. They should just fix it by now, and I'm not too sure why they haven't found a fix for it. So hopefully they will, but I guess we'll see what happens there. Now, throughout last year, we had a couple of new improvements that came out, lots of updates, lots of games that have came out as well. But I think 2022 may be a big year for the Nintendo Switch. It's been 5 years. I think we may get games like Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild that may be coming out, the second version, maybe Super Mario Odyssey 2. I don't think we're going to get another Smash coming out this year, but if those games end up coming out, that would be awesome, and I would love to see that. Now, the build quality of this Nintendo Switch is still very good for the most part. When I compare it to my OLED Switch and I compare it to my Switch Lite, pretty much the same build quality against those. I mean, the Switch Lite feels a little cheaper, but the original Nintendo Switch still feels fine. My model is actually one of the original ones that came out, even though I purchased it about 3 years ago, so I haven't had it for the full 5. And my Switch was actually, first of all, it was kind of scratched up when I got it, but it's totally okay. But it's still in really good condition. I thought, the components would break down. I did have to change out the Joy-Cons themselves, but other than that, it's been pretty much used for the full 5 years, and it's still fully functional, which is great. I haven't had any issues with the actual Nintendo Switch itself. Like I said, the Joy-Cons I had to replace, but the console itself has been perfectly fine, and I haven't had any issues with it for pretty much the 3 years I've owned it and the 2 years that somebody else owned it as well. Now, funny enough, my Nintendo Switch that I had was able to actually be jailbroken and able to be modded in a way, and I've actually modded this Nintendo Switch. I did it last year or 2 years ago, and it was quite a bit of a process. I probably would recommend doing it if you have the original Nintendo Switch, but do keep in mind that if you're planning on, kind of modifying it and doing some games and stuff like that online, I would not recommend doing that because Nintendo can find out and they can block your Nintendo account, which I would not recommend doing. But regardless, I was able to mod this thing and it was a lot of fun. And, I've modded the 3DS and the DSi, I think, back in the day, and even my PSPs and stuff. And this console, if you had the original one, like this one, you can go ahead and modify it too if you'd like. Now, another big thing to keep in mind is the performance of this specific console. Now, the biggest thing to remember is that pretty much every Nintendo Switch that has came out so far is pretty much the same speed. So it's not like the Switch Lite is faster than the OLED Switch or the OLED Switch is faster than the Switch Lite. As far as I know, they are pretty much the same exact performance level, which is beautiful because that means you can get the original Switch like this that's, a couple years older than the other ones, and you can still get the same performance. And the best thing about this is that you can dock it up to your dock and you can play it on your monitor or your TV as well. And that just makes things look so much better in my opinion. And I actually love having that ability because it makes this a very capable console. If you want to go ahead and take it with you on the go, well, you can play those heavy intensive games on the go if you want. And then you can also bring it back to your house and then play it on your, computer or your screen. And it makes things so much better. And that's why Nintendo is selling a bunch of these things, because they're just so portable. They're just so dynamic. People can even have two Nintendo Switches. One they just leave docked all the time, and the other one that they take with them. I mean, I've seen this time and time again. I have all three of these Nintendo Switches, so I definitely know a lot of people are in love with these things. The games that are available are just ever growing, and ever since I think last year, Nintendo added that newer expansion pack for the Nintendo 64 games, and Nintendo even on their website stated that they are working on getting more games out for this thing. And I do think ever since that Super Mario trilogy that came out, the Sunshine, the Super Mario 64, Sunshine, and then Galaxy, I feel like Nintendo is going to open up a lot more Nintendo GameCube games to come out for this console as well. So it's only a matter of time before something like that happens. And I do think in 2022, this console is still completely worth it in my opinion. I genuinely don't understand where Nintendo can go from here, because if they make another Nintendo Switch like next year or the year after, that's going to put this console in a very weird spot because so many people own it, and it's going to make people who are developing games for this console also in an awkward spot, because are they going to develop them for the next Nintendo Switch or this one? And is that Nintendo Switch going to have backwards compatibility? I think it will, but we never know. And in this case, it's kind of tough to say. So in my opinion, I think this Nintendo Switch is here to stay for like another 5 years. And when you get this console, you are pretty much future-proofing yourself. Like I mentioned, I don't know what Nintendo can do with the next Nintendo Switch. I was thinking they were going to make the display bigger and put an OLED display on it and move on from there, but they've already done that, and they haven't called that one the Nintendo Switch 2. So I'm sure that one's going to be way faster, way better, this and that. I mean, these things still have the components from like 5 years ago, so I guess we'll see what happens. But this original Nintendo Switch is still completely worth it in this day and age. It's very capable, has a lot of performance, has a lot of power, and I do think, like I mentioned, if you don't have either Nintendo Switch yet, you don't have a Lite or you don't have an OLED, then this one by far is a really good one you should pick up. But if you want to save some money, you can go for a Switch Lite, but these things are really still hard to get, so good luck finding one. But I will still tell you they are completely worth it, and it seems to still be only growing as far as I know. So in terms of that pretty much covers it up. If you guys have any other questions or anything like that, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.